Who will be my friend? That was the big question before each weekly camp our child attended over the summer. Even though our 8-year-old has deeply internalized what we have so often observed to her, you make friends wherever you go. She says it to herself now with confidence. I make friends wherever I go. And yet still, in the car on the way to a new camp, there is nervousness about this critical question of friends. Every single camp, every single week, brings a bit of butterflies in the tummy. I'm not so different. As I got ready to go on my own adventure this summer, I too wondered, will I make any friends? I was reassured somewhat by knowing that the group I would join, made up of Unitarian Universalist ministers making a pilgrimage to Transylvania, included one person I already knew and liked. But would I click with any others on this 12-day venture into unknown lands? Would I be able to connect with my Hungarian Unitarian colleagues, whose lives and worlds are so different than mine? Many people who come through the red doors of this church for the first time bring the same question: who will be my friend? The human need for connection and belonging is so strong, and yet we can't count on finding connection and belonging. Families we get whether we like it or not, but the relationship of friendship is freely chosen and thus never guaranteed. It can leave a person of any age feeling a bit nervous, a bit vulnerable, to enter a new community hungry for friendship and unsure if friendship will be available. It's my sincere hope that everyone who comes here seeking friendship will find both friendly faces and, over time, actual friends. A true friend is not to be confused with a fair weather friend or a frenemy. Such a person may act like a friend when it is convenient or when they want something from you, but then cut you down or leave you behind when it serves their own interests. As children sometimes painfully learn, this is not a real friend. Loyalty, fidelity, continuity through the years, these are the hallmarks of genuine friendship. And friendship, which is not rooted in duty or biological necessity, as family relationships often are, a special kind of equality and altruism is possible. We love a friend simply because we love them. Still, the line between family and friend may blur. Marisol Caballero, a UU minister in Austin, describes how Latinx people have way more relatives than many other families, and thus more Spanish words for these relationships. For example, there are family words for godparents, compadres and comadres. The words literally mean co-father and co-mother, Caballero explains. And these words are used liberally, even between extremely close adult friends who may not have any children at all, as they are co-parenting, co-nurturing each other's stage of life. Comadres and compadres. I like that. These are the kinds of friends, Caballero says, whose doors you don't knock on and whose refrigerators are stocked for your free grazing. They will show up in a crisis and love you unconditionally. Years can pass without speaking, and you pick right up where you left off. They see you beyond failed marriages and career achievements. They understand that you helped to form them, and they you. They are family as much as, and sometimes more than, blood relatives. Everyone, she says, needs comadres and compadres. One West Sider shared with me the word she uses to describe this type of relationship: framily. Friends who are so close that they are our chosen family. In my own family, my child has an aunt who does not fit on the family tree, and my husband claims my best friend as his sister-in-law. This is what he calls her when they talk on the phone or when he introduces her to people. This is my sister-in-law. Perhaps friends are especially important in our mobile, individualistic culture. For even if we have big families full of wonderful, healthy people, we may not live anywhere near them. So people create their own communities, often starting as young adults leaving home. I suspect this helps explain the popularity of the TV show Friends, which aired from '94 to 2004. Friends doesn't hold up that well if you watch reruns today. It's very white, heteronormative, and has all kinds of gender issues. But the show's collection of 20-something friends supporting one another through the ups and downs of their careers and relationships and evolving identities, it represents a kind of community that people need, that people crave. My friend Julia, known as Aunt Jules to my child, describes each of her deep friendships as offering a kind of Zen koan that she learns from again and again. There's often a specific interaction or statement that comes back to puzzle or nourish me in new ways across time, she explains. A friend at lunch putting down her fork so that she fully attends to me. Oh, to be worthy of such attentiveness. Oh, to practice it myself. Sometimes the koan is a snapshot of a split-second moment, she goes on. The way the water felt as we drifted on it together on a scorching summer day, the angle of my friend's impish and soulful grin, one that I know contains a life story of an astounding journey from fundamentalist parents who ruefully believe she will go to hell because of her evolving faith, to raging granny singing protest songs and forging deep care for a death row inmate. Julia continues, sometimes the koan, the memory of a friend generously spending a day helping me to pack my excessive collection of thrift store clothes so I could move 1,200 miles away. How accepting this gesture is of a materialism I will have to get over someday. How my friend's acceptance, that actually costs her in using valuable time, enables me to see this clinging hobby for both its usefulness and its shallowness. She observes, perhaps the greatest koan a friend, so gentle, so deep and insightful that I must value anything she offers, ever gifted to me, was to spontaneously blurt, "You don't even know how good you are." You don't even know how good you are. Julia's story lifts up one of the greatest gifts of friendship. Friends confirm and reconfirm our goodness, our worth, even when we didn't realize we needed someone to affirm us. If I trust my friend, and I know they know me deeply, then their high regard for me goes deep into my soul. This is part of the healing and empowering gift of friendship. You don't even know how good you are, but our friends know. Shared experience often helps to forge meaningful friendships. I remember vividly people I was together with on choir tour in college. We spent long bus rides playing spades and scattergories, gave concerts in churches and all the way from Iowa to Colorado and back, and shared homestays with local families. A very different kind of shared experience, marching on the streets together against the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and crying together in vigils, left me forever bonded with a different set of friends. And many of my friends for life formed in the crucible of graduate school. When I traveled to Transylvania recently, I hoped the common experiences of the 12-day pilgrimage would help me build relationships with my colleagues from both North America and Transylvania. Sure enough, by sharing many Hungarian meals, bus rides, walks through foreign cities and villages, and our growing picture collections, an easy kinship developed among the North American travelers who were together for the full pilgrimage. I hadn't counted on our swapping germs, viruses, and later medical supplies, but by necessity, we relied on one another for that support, and it brought us closer too. During the middle of the pilgrimage, we went to the mountains for a 3-day retreat with a group of Hungarian colleagues. We broke the ice with shared worship, singing, and improvisational get-to-know-you exercises. Ping pong, foosball, and conversations over meals helped us relax together. As we talked about our ministries on both continents, much common ground emerged in the joys and challenges of serving our communities. The hospitality went deeper as some of our colleagues welcomed us into their churches and even their homes. Here you can see some of the group when we visited a farm that one of the Hungarian colleagues runs on the side with her family. We got a tour of the farm with all of the fruits and herbs growing, watched them bake bread in the traditional way in an outdoor oven, enjoyed stew cooked in a giant pot over an outdoor fire, and for dessert, we were fed tasty pastries made with local fruit and cheese, also baked in the outdoor oven, all the while visiting and chatting with each other. And this photo is from some of the group participating in a jam tasting contest that this colleague put together from her farm goods. I did not win the jam tasting contest. I had a cold that happened to peak that day, and Noemi, the colleague hosting us, made me some tea with herbs fresh from her garden, which brought me some relief, and I definitely call her now a friend. In local churches, too, common interests and shared experiences often help people to form bonds of friendship. It may be through an affinity group, the choir, a class, a committee, or a covenant group. Stay tuned, by the way, for more about covenant groups. We're going to be launching a new small group ministry program this fall, which is a wonderful way to get interested, make interesting connections and have deeper conversations with other people in the church. But churches, including Unitarian Universalist ones, at their best are not just places for like-minded people to come together. In fact, if that's all they do, I believe they are falling short of their promise. For congregations like ours are not ultimately meant to be merely a social club. We have a higher purpose to change lives, both for our members and for the community and world around us. And sometimes it's when we encounter people whose lives and experiences, whose ideas and theologies are different than our own, that we have the greatest opportunity for growth and transformation. One of our members, Cindy, told me about a special relationship she developed with a woman whose life story is very different in some ways from her own. Cindy calls her my faraway friend, and here's how she describes their connection. I met Teresa through an online community called Daily Challenge, in which you were given a challenge that might be a certain exercise, healthy eating tips, decluttering, etc. Teresa had a profound effect on me, as well as many people in Daily Challenge. She wrote inspiring messages of hope, sometimes despair too, and most of all, perseverance. Cindy continues, our special friendship grew out of my private messaging her to encourage her on a speech that she was giving at the UN General Assembly. I've never met someone quite like Teresa. She was Egyptian, spoke 5 languages, and had become a pilot in the Egyptian military, but was now piloting for Doctors Without Borders. She was also a scientist, specializing in trying to keep our world supplied with potable water. She worked through the UN on water projects and refugee work, too. She visited many refugee camps and held the babies. As a rescue pilot for Doctors Without Borders, she flew to many of the places we would hear about on TV that had had bombing attacks. Teresa did all this despite the trauma she had been through. Here's the kicker, Cindy explained. Teresa was flying to those places even after having been blown up by a mine during one of her rescue missions. Her face was disfigured. She had to have her voice box reconstructed. Her breasts were blown off and her legs. Cindy remembers, one week in the summer of 2016, I think it was, Teresa flew to about 5 different countries in a week's time: Turkey, Bangladesh, and others. That week of flying to so many places took its toll on Teresa's health, so she retired from piloting rescue missions. She continued having a voice for refugees through the UN High Commission on Refugees. But she developed cancer and died a week before her 69th birthday in early March 2017. In one of their last exchanges, right after the new US administration took office, Cindy learned how her international friend was experiencing US policies. Teresa told her how the new travel ban had affected her. "I have formally been told that I'm denied entry to your country," Teresa explained. "Not because I am Black, and not because I am Muslim, I am a Buddhist, but purely because I have traveled so much within the Arab world. Even though I travel on a diplomatic passport, I have come under the radar of undesirable." Right in Fort Worth, just a couple years before, Teresa had been interrogated for 2 hours. Now she wanted to visit her dearest friend in Houston before death took them both. But she confided, sadly, "This I will not be allowed to do." And she told Cindy, "My work is done." Cindy had had a feeling that her faraway friend was near the end. And of course, she was aware of the travel ban. She was angry to learn how it had impacted Teresa and of her experience right here in Fort Worth. And we might wonder, too, what these policies mean for friendship or enmity between nations. In her final reply, Cindy wrote this to Teresa: "I promise you that I will help carry on the work of democracy and humanity. You have indeed done your work, and many people, myself included, are the better for it. I am so incredibly grateful that we cross paths, faraway friend. Love, hugs, light into your journey, dear one." Indeed, there is so much we can learn from friends whose lives have been quite different than our own. During the pilgrimage in Transylvania, as I was taking in the landscape and the culture and making new friends, I was also learning what I could about the Unitarian Universalist Partner Church program. It's a bit like the Sister Cities program. The Partner Church program pairs UU congregations in the US and Canada with Unitarian and UU churches in other parts of the world, very often in Transylvania, the birthplace of Unitarianism. Westside could look into this program and consider becoming partnered with a church overseas. Listening to colleagues whose churches had participated in these partnerships, I learned that finding common ground and sharing experiences together is a big part of the partner church experience. Youth groups that meet across cultures form life-changing bonds. The participants' sense of being part of a global community grows tremendously. And in one example shared, the experience of pitching in to help a partner church get its building ready for a big celebration made them feel like bosom buddies after they had pulled it off together. These shared experiences can be very fulfilling. But the differences that members discover are just as powerful for these cross-cultural friendships. I'll share 2 examples I heard about how the differences experienced in relationship with partner communities enrich the participants. During the Joint Ministers Retreat in Transylvania, several of my female Hungarian Unitarian colleagues talked about the challenges of blazing trails as women in ministry. It has only been in the past 20 years or so that women have served as ordained ministers there. And my new Hungarian friends shared that the moral support of colleagues from this side of the Atlantic had been so crucial to women ministers in Transylvania as they found their way forward. In the other direction, I heard several Americans speak to the ways that the Christian identity and practices of our faith cousins in Transylvania offered them special gifts. Over the course of the pilgrimage itself, one colleague shared at the end, he had experienced a healing in his relationship to the Christian tradition that he hadn't even realized he needed. He had thought he was done with that process a long time ago. But in the presence of our Transylvanian friends who have a Unitarian Christian culture and liturgy that is so life-affirming, some further resolution occurred within himself. He felt more at peace with his Christian childhood and with the Christian heritage of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. The gifts of friendship are sometimes unexpected. And by the way, if anyone here is intrigued by the idea of the Partner Church program and building friendships with Unitarians in Transylvania or some other part of the world, this is something that we could look into, perhaps later this year. So if you are interested in being part of an exploratory committee, please let me know. I want to share one other gem with you from a West Sider on friendship. This comes from Thayer, who leads our Buddhist meditation group. She writes goals for various areas of her life, complete with vision statements, strategy, pictures, and quotes. And one of those areas is about social connections, friendship. Of course, pictures of friends are so heartwarming, but I think what I most appreciated about Thayer's write-up is how intentional she is about spending time with friends. One of her practices is to invite friends to happy hour on her porch. And she gave herself a to-do item of scheduling with friends. I love this because as precious as friendship can be in our lives, it is all too easy to let them slide. Demands of work and family and entrancing diversions like television and social media can distract us from investing time in these relationships. So this is my invitation to you. Even if you don't want to create a 5-page strategic plan for friendship, consider the place of friendship in your life. If it's important to you, identify 1 or 2 steps you can take to invest regularly in your friendships, to make new friends, and to stay connected with your old friends. Like my child, my wish for each of you is that you make friends wherever you go. For as Aristotle said, without friends, no one would choose to live, even though they possessed all other goods. And may this community be one vibrant place where friendships are formed, nurtured, and deepened. Amen.